Welcome to the Western Bowl podcast series, with talks on traditional spiritual teaching and its application in the world today. The intention of this series is to offer something useful for those who are drawn to study themselves and engage practice on the spiritual path. New talks are posted twice each month. The content of the talks is for informational purposes only and not to provide any kind of counseling, medical, or professional advice. This podcast is titled Sensation, the Language of the Body. The talk was given by Naomi Worob on March 14th, 2026, via Zoom. Naomi is a student of the wisdom traditions and an artist, choreographer, director, and yoga teacher. She facilitates classes, workshops, retreats, and residencies that invite deep embodiment, creative expression, and authentic relating. In this presentation, she speaks about awareness of sensations as a way of experiencing the fullness of life. She notes that through the hidden curriculum that we learn in our culture, we become less and less in touch with our bodies. Naomi reads poetry by John O'Donohue, engages in dialogue about the connection between interoception, the awareness of bodily sensations, and self-observation, and references some of Peter Levine's work about opening to a broader spectrum of experience. She offers exercises which were engaged by those who attended the talk, including one from butoh, a form of performance art that arose out of post-World War II Japan. If you would like to participate in these exercises, just find a quiet place and follow her cues. If there is benefit in this talk for you, please consider sharing the link to it or writing a review on social media or on one of the podcast platforms. Naomi Worob.
Yes, thank you all for being here. So the title that I gave this talk is Sensation, the Language of the Body. And if I were to rewrite the title of the talk now, I would call it Sensation, Coming Home to the Lost Language of the Body. We are really disconnected from our body as a culture broadly. And I know that within this group, and I'm sure among the listeners of this podcast, there's many people who are very connected to their bodies and connect to their bodies through many different modalities. So I want to honor that as well. And still, I know for myself, even as someone who grew up a part of an ashram community, as someone who found my way to dance and studied dance and now study yoga, teach yoga, somatics, still with all of that, the cultural soup that we are all swimming in and what that says about us and our bodies and how we relate to them affects me. And so I imagine that what I will share affects you too, or is curious or relevant to you. At least that's my hope. So my intention for tonight is that this space is embodied, it's experiential, it's imaginative, it's playful, and it's curious, and it's resource building. And my hope is that by the end of our time together, we all feel a little bit more grounded, a little more free, a little more empowered, and able, as we go forward, to sense that there's a few more possibilities. As I go through this talk and as I invite you to connect to your body through a visualization or a meditation or a simple movement exercise, I just want to remind you that my words are invitations, and always you're welcome to adjust what I'm saying to better suit what you're experiencing right now, or to choose a different way to respond. For myself, my goal for tonight is to just stay with my experience and with my body. Giving a talk is a scary and big experience for me, and it would feel ironic if I gave a talk about connecting to bodies and then spent the entire talk dissociated from mine. So I will aim to stay present and to give myself space to pause and to ground and orient so that I can be here in my body with you. So tonight we are going to begin by really considering the culture that we're swimming in and what that has taught us, what that tells us about our bodies, and how we may perpetuate some of the stories about our bodies as we perform culture. We're going to consider how we might play with that culture within this space, whether you're here or listening to the podcast later, through building some community agreements. I'm going to talk about why sensations feel like the language of the body. I'm going to talk about that with support of what we understand about the nervous system and regulating our nervous systems, trauma, and healing. And then I'll invite some experiential exercises around that. Connecting to our bodies is a resource. I know this to be true. We are more resilient, we are more present, and we are more resourced in ourselves when we're connected to our bodies. And that's really at the root of why I feel passionate and inspired about this topic and here to give this talk. And I feel like I would be here at any given moment giving this talk. And also I want to name that in this particular moment, with what is alive in our collective, politically, environmentally, culturally, it just feels particularly important to focus on how we might resource ourselves, heal, so that we can be present for ourselves and for each other in a time that feels troubled. You're welcome to pause me at any point. You're welcome to ask questions. I'm well aware that there's some real experts in the room right now when it comes to bodies, philosophy, therapy. So please, your voice is welcome. Your wisdom is welcome. Okay. The culture we're swimming in. As I was thinking about this, then I kind of went through what we may learn about our bodies just growing up in America, particularly if we're going to public school. So it's likely that when we were a preschooler, age 3 to 6, if we were together with others in a preschool, as a preschooler, then we were told things like, use your inside voice. We maybe learned how to sit still, and were really encouraged to sit still as we came together in a group. We likely learned what to touch and what to not touch, and were very encouraged to not use our bodies to harm others. In elementary school, it's likely that we learned that we need to raise our hands before speaking, and that it's important for us, for the most part, to stay silent, especially when we're in a formal class or structure. We likely learned that we needed to ask permission to use the bathroom. And depending on where we were in school, we may be learned to sit in a desk for a long period of time, to walk in lines, and to be quiet in hallways. We may have heard something about how we should sit up straight, how we should be mindful of our personal space, what clothing is appropriate when, perhaps something about gendered behavior. Within elementary school, movement perhaps became scheduled. And so we were free and expressive in our movement at recess, maybe in PE class, perhaps in transitions between rooms or at home. But we learned that that type of movement is allowed in some places. However, in the classroom, the body is expected to be more still and quiet. So as we continued to grow up, we learned that bodies should look a certain way, and we may have been oriented towards being physical, again, only within particular avenues, outside at certain moments and in sports. And then we hit adolescence, puberty, and high school, and we were learning more things about what clothing was appropriate, sexuality, touch, and emotional expression. There was likely some conversation around modesty, particularly if you were a girl, female body. we likely receive some sort of warnings about sexual behavior and further kind of refinement around what our expectations are within our particular gender. Particularly within high school, when I reflect on that time, I remember staying up late studying, learning to manage stress that felt quite unreasonable, pushing through fatigue, and participating in a lot of extracurriculars. And all of this, then I was learning to listen less and less to what my body was so that I could perform to meet standards outside of myself. And then as we entered the workforce, it's likely we learned something about controlling our facial expressions. Again, this was built upon in our upbringing, but we want to be pleasant. We wanted to kind of limit our emotional expression and, again, maintain this professional performance and appearance where we can be steady, stable, a force of work in one area. Within this, and perhaps continued from school, we may learn to pay attention less to our hunger and to our body signals so we can just show up for work. And in all of this, then somehow the body becomes wrapped around our professional identity and productivity. So in all of this, the main messages that we receive is that the body should be productive, emotion should be controlled, rest must be earned, and bodies should be improved or optimized. This is sometimes talked about as the hidden curriculum that's learned in schools. The body should be still. Authority regulates bodily needs. Silence signals respect. Bodies should conform to standard norms. Productivity overrides physical comfort. Movement is a reward, not a need. Emotional expression is regulated. Bodies are publicly evaluated. And time is more important than our natural rhythms. Overall, the message is something like, good bodies are controlled bodies. So what I know is that a controlled body can't be a sensing body, a body that is here with a full presence of one's being. And as I went through and thought about some of the things that I experienced growing up or that are just kind of alive in our culture, then I really felt that strongly. So one thing I know from theater, from anthropology, from life is that culture is something that is embodied and then it's practiced, something that we repeat, whether we do that consciously or unconsciously. And in that, there's a choice, whether we continue cultural norms or whether we break them, play with them. As I was thinking about this talk, and particularly the format of a meeting like this, I was aware of cultural norms that may be present here that are likely dredged forward from what we've learned. And with that, I just want to invite there to be more space within our container to be with your body, to center your body, and to move with freedom and expression. So specifically, I wrote these agreements that I would like to propose for us. So in this space, we can move our bodies. Something that I think is a huge misconception is that one cannot listen while moving. I feel like this was completely squashed and thrown out the window and reorganized for me as I studied dance in college and was often invited to listen to essays, to poems, to have conversations while moving my body. So I know that actually my experience relating to content is deepened when I give myself the freedom to move. And I know that somebody can be moving while I'm speaking and listening deeply to me. So I invite you to move in subtle ways or in big ways, but take the freedom to move with you in this space. So we can move our bodies. We can also take care of our bodies. Only you know what you've experienced in the day and where you are now. So I really invite you, if you need to tend to any care that your body is asking for. Within the format of Zoom, then we can feel like we need to stay with our eyes locked on the screen, make good eye contact. I want to invite you to have freedom of eye movement. Look at the screen, look away from the screen. It's all good. You can also have your eyes open or closed. And then just as we speak, if you choose to speak at any point, I just want to ask that we center the use of I statements to really own and honor what we've experienced in our bodies and separate that out from what we haven't experienced and what we don't know of another's experience. An example of that is it's common for us to say things like, we're happy when we're connected to each other, but you just placed this on me. You just threw this statement on me. Another example is the use of you. I could say, like when you get up and you're so excited for the day and then you have a hard time resting. And again, that could be your experience, but I don't know. In either of those examples, it's more accurate, honest, and embodied for me if I say, I am happy when we're connected together. Or when I get up, I feel so excited for the day. Sometimes I have a hard time resting. It owns my experience and it gives the other person space to have a different experience and own their own. So those are community agreements that I thought of, and I'm curious how those resonate, how those land for you. If you can agree to them, if you feel resistant to them, or if there's anything else that you'd like to add to the space to allow more ease or better reception for you and your body. I got a thumbs up. Thank you. Yeah. But I thought a way that we could play with this is by me reading a poem 3 times. And each time I read the poem, I'm going to offer a different way for you to be in your body with the poem. And I suppose it's clarifying for me as I hear your reflections that my intention for this space or for the community agreements are to play with what do you really need? If you were to truly connect with your body right now, what would you need to do that? Or what would that look like? So I'm going to read this poem 3 times. And the first time, I want to invite you to choose to have your eyes open or closed. And your body can just be in a relaxed position. This is A Blessing by John O'Donohue. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame, and may anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. If your eyes are closed, you can open your eyes or keep them closed. I'm going to read this poem a second time. And this time, I want to invite you with your eyes open or closed to just move your hands or your arms in a way that allows them to respond to what you're hearing. That feels a little abstract, but I think that's okay. Just allow your hands and arms to move as I read. A Blessing by John O'Donohue. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May the warmth of heart keep your presence aflame, and may anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. You can come back to the space as you're ready. I'll read this poem a third time, and this time I'm going to ask you to give me your full presence, to offer your eye contact, and to somehow, with your body and being, communicate to me that you are here, you validate what I'm doing, and you support me. A Blessing by John O'Donohue. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame, and may anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder, and be at ease, whatever that looks like for you. So I'm curious how that was for you, what you noticed, and what you take with you now.
The first time you read it, I had my palms down on my legs. And the second time you read it, I turned my palms up. And there was a different receptivity in the body when I did that, just the turning of my palms. That was really cool because it's such a beautiful poem and it's a prayer. And being able to receive it more in the body with something so simple like the turning of my palms was really noteworthy.
All I could say very simply is that felt so damn good. Ooh, I just enjoyed it in my body and freely moving my hands and arms and neck, just like embodying it and embracing it.
For me, the poem went much deeper when I had my eyes closed and I was moving with it. But for me, it's always been like that. To receive something, the easiest way for me to receive it is when I can move my body.
I felt naturally drawn to move my hands to my heart during the second reading. And then during the third reading, when we were putting our attention on you, for me, my sensations were in my heart again. And I was just appreciating you. Just really felt that.
The whole process is really lovely. I too had my eyes closed, which allowed me to take in the meaning of the poem in a way where I was less distracted. I kept my eyes closed in the movement, but I was just really playing, just really gave myself permission to move like that. But I think the third one was the most valuable because for me, I heard the poem in a totally different way. And it was really a full cellular penetration.
There was something about the repetition of the poem. So by the third repetition, there was a kind of intimacy with it from hearing it more than once. So for me, it was easy to look at you because the poem at that point in the third reading had very much come alive. I've come to really appreciate the repetition of anything that's being read, especially for me with poetry. And so I was getting into a rhythm with the poem.
Okay. I really appreciate hearing how you all were able to hold a presence with yourself while also generously giving your attention to me in a way that, as I was hearing it, felt like expansive and open, not controlled or constricted. So already within the landscape of how you all have been with me and the content in your bodies speaks to this idea of sensation and sensation in our body as a way to connect to our experience, to feel our impulses, and to take in information. So the fancy word for being aware of sensation in the body is interoception. And I'm just going to take a moment to talk about the nervous system and interoception and regulation. And you can take this information in, you can take a brain vacation, and you don't need to know these words. But it's an interesting, for me, languaging to, I think, many things that many people have known intuitively in their bodies for a long time. But this kind of speaks why it's important to connect to our bodies through the contemporary language of science and neuroscience. So our nervous system connects our internal body to the outside world. And it is what allows us to take in information from the outside and match it with what's happening internally so that we can respond in a way that really promotes our safety and well-being. And there are two parts of the nervous system. There's the central nervous system. This is the control center. It connects your brain and spinal cord. And then there's the peripheral nervous system, which connects the central nervous system to the vast network of nerves that is in the rest of our bodies. And within the peripheral nervous system, so within the part of our nervous system that is connecting to all of the nerves, all of the information, all the sense information within us, we have the autonomic nervous system. And this is what regulates our bodies. So within the autonomic nervous system, there are two branches. There's the sympathetic response and there's a parasympathetic response. And what this kind of feels like and shows us is that in our bodies, to be regulated, we kind of flow between periods of more activation, sympathetic arousal. This is when we feel like our heart rate is increased, we're receiving more oxygen, and this oxygen is going to our blood and to our muscles, and there's stress hormones that are released. So part of our natural rhythms is being active, engaged, energetic, a little stressed. And then there is the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is responsible for rest and recovery and conserving energy. So it slows down our heart rate and supports digestion, and it really allows us to relax our body and restore energy. So we feel this within our days, within our lives. And when our nervous system is regulated, then there's kind of an easeful transition between those states. And one way that we can really feel this is through sensing our body, through what we've been doing, through interoception. So that's cool. But then further, in moments when we have experienced something that's been overwhelming, stressful, or traumatic, and we kind of jump outside of what is the range of resiliency. So, what kind of outside of what is this normal flow, then our bodies can get stuck. If we are stuck in our parasympathetic state, then this could look like being frozen, depressed, low energy. There can be mixed states too. If we're stuck in the sympathetic arousal, then it can look like anxiety, racing thoughts, etc. So, beyond just being able to sense our inner states, when we bring awareness to our inner sensations, interoception, it helps our body re-regulate, kind of as if our body without our awareness is a classroom with no teacher. And in this classroom, perhaps things are going well and everyone's fine, but maybe not. There could be chaos and there is a need for a steady presence, a kind, compassionate, steady teacher to come on board and to help bring the classroom back into cohesion. So when we bring awareness to our bodies and to our inner sensations, then in a similar way, we're becoming a presence that helps regulate a system that really needs our witness and support, especially in moments of overwhelm or trauma.
Do you feel there's any distinction between the terms interoception and self-observation? Do you feel like it's semantics pretty much?
That's a great question. So something that's unique about interoception, being specifically aware of senses in our body, is that when we feel our bodies without language or emotion placed on top of it, then it gives like space and access to pathways that connect to our implicit memory. So, our memory that is about our movement patterns and our unconscious behavior that we've learned. And that's different than if we are practicing self awareness or self observation. If I'm noticing I'm tired because I didn't rest earlier, and I'm angry because this person did something, and I'm happy because I ate a cookie earlier, then sure, that could be bringing some sort of informational awareness to what we're experiencing, but it's just repeating narratives that are already built in our memory and in our neural pathways, rather than when we're observing with only senses, then we're kind of getting under the layers of language and story memory.
It's more instinctive?
Yeah, you could say it's more instinctive. I think that feels right.
I think there's another distinction, which is that one of the hallmarks or keys of self-observation from a personal practice point of view is without judgment. It's something conducted without the judging of the situation. People analyze themselves. They're always watching what they do. They're always giving stories to what they do. But the idea of self-observation is without judgment.
Yeah, so that feels similar. When we're sensing our bodies, then there isn't a judgment about whether a sense is good or bad or can belong or can't. Then it's simply just having an open field of awareness that connects us to what our body is experiencing. And I can imagine great value for people that are using self-observation to understand stories and emotions and patterns. And that is different than specifically being attuned to sensations, but both feel good and have different purposes.
For me, personally, it seems that self-observation is something that I will. It's something that I intend to do where if it has to do with my senses, it's more something that's just arising, but I don't control it. It's just there, and it's for me to sense and feel and observe. So that's how I see it. There's a bit of a difference. Mm.
Yeah, so self-observation has a little bit of an action to it, like you're going to observe.
An intention.
It sounds like it's more like being witnessed to or being alongside, less doing.
I think the intentions are different in self-observation, interoception. Self-observation is a system of observing oneself, and it's a practice. It seems to me that interoception is more about learning how to sense yourself, sense the body for emotional and nervous system regulation. So it's a little bit of a different focus. Doesn't mean they don't intersect, but I think their intentions are different.
Yeah, thank you. That feels clear and clarifying.
I just wondered if someone goes from like worldly awareness to deep meditation, has someone measured whether you're passing through those different nervous systems that you've talked about?
There's been lots of research and more research recently about what is happening within our brains and physiologically when we're meditating. And I don't have that research right inside of me. To answer your question, with what I do know, I know, yes, we are changing states and there is transition and transformation that happens. And I know that that looks different too, depending on what kind of meditative practice you have. So what you are truly doing with yourself inside of you when you're meditating. All right, I'm going to invite us to just go into an exercise of tracking sensation. And again, you're welcome to engage with this however is best for you. You could witness the practice or you can step into it. And we'll be with this practice for about 10 or 15 minutes. If you can, it can be helpful to really allow your body to relax, to have back support, and to have a way that your feet can be touching the ground. That's not possible. It's all good. And as we go into this, I just want to name something that I find really cool, which is that our nervous systems are fed, are nourished when we rest in states of resource and pleasure. And so I think that there's something in our culture that like wants to be tough and like, I can like sit with something that's hard and I can get through it. But in this exercise, and I think in general, if you continue to be curious about what it is to be with your body and sensations, then I really want to celebrate and encourage resting with sensations that are resourcing, that are pleasurable, or that are neutral. And then just being mindful when you're with a sensation that brings up more tension or constriction, asking yourself whether you'd like to stay with that sensation or shift your awareness. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to just pause and feel into the seat that's supporting you and the ground beneath you. Connect to your breath. And with your breath, see if you can allow your body to drop more into gravity, into the support of your chair and the ground beneath you. If your body wants to move, shift, wiggle, you're welcome to allow those movements. Allow your neck to be free. And if you'd like, you can take on a gesture of support, something that signals to your body that you're here with presence and care. This could be a hand on your belly and one on your heart, one hand on your forehead and one hand on the back of your neck. Could be both hands on your heart. or any other gesture that feels right for you. You're welcome to have your eyes open or your gaze soft or your eyes closed. From here, just begin to observe any sensations that are alive within your body now. With each sensation, just be with it for a moment. If it's pleasant, you can stay with it longer. Observe if the quality of the sensation shifts or stays the same as you rest with it. Be curious about how sensations lead to another sensation. Again, your body is free to wiggle, to shift, to move. If any sensation feels unpleasant, see what it's like to shift to another sensation that is more pleasant or neutral. Allow your seat to support you and allow gravity to support you. If your eyes are closed, I'm going to invite you to just soften your gaze and let in the space around you. You can stay with your body, you can stay with sensation. You can allow your neck the freedom to move, and your eyes the freedom to wander. And as you look around, you can let your gaze rest on something in your space that's pleasant, that's beautiful, that brings you joy. And with your gaze there, just notice what's alive internally. You can move from one thing to another, seeing something that's pleasant, beautiful, noticing what sensations are inside of you as you rest your attention with this object. You can take a moment to close this practice for yourself by just honoring yourself and your experience, perhaps bringing back the gesture of support that you had before. And as you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the group. How was this for you? What did you notice? What did you observe?
I felt the energy around my heart become active, and it was very pleasant.
I appreciated just being for this short period of time rather than talking or listening to information and processing that. Just having a break in that sense was very full for me. I mean, I initially felt different sensations in my body, my feet on the floor, my butt on the chair, my neck rolling around. And then feeling some part of me wanted to get away from the experience to be distracted and think about other things. And I just brought that back. And then just felt very deeply just being here. And then looking around the room, I just settled on this picture of my children, my adult children, and just felt such love for that period of the exercise.
The experience in deep meditation is that this body tends to really cool down, and the sensation of getting cold was very present for me. Beyond that, it's very powerful to go into and be in deep meditation. It's empowering.
What I appreciated a lot about this exercise was just being still. I tend to move around a lot, and by nature, my life is very busy. And I forget to be still, or I'm worried about being still because then I think, like, well, even if I sit, my thoughts will be racing, thinking about this, that, and the other. But I really appreciated so much to being still and being present, just allowing myself to do that.
I noticed that smiles come to my face when I look at certain things. So it was not only a sense of internal energy, but it was the facial muscles responded with a feeling of joy.
Yeah, something that can be really meaningful about slowing down and being with sensations is that sensations lead to impulses, lead to movements and expressions. And so perhaps if you take this with you, then something that you can be curious about is not only being with sensation, but then as sensation feels like it leads to an impulse, following that through and just slowly seeing what emerges. Perhaps a smile. Well, I think I'll just tie this back to the idea that connecting to our body is a resource, and particularly practicing being an anchor for our own experience, being a witness to our own experience, really equips us with the tools to be with the fullness of life. And something that I get curious about is, like was mentioned before, as we were talking about self-observation and interoception, being with inner sensations, is whether I can really make my relationship to senses more neutral, open my arms, open my heart, open my experience to all sensations. I get curious about what kind of presence that offers me in my life with other people and with the living world. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting point because for me, or I think just as human beings, we tend to open to the pleasurable sensations and to try to keep at bay or to push away those that are unpleasant,
Mm-hmm.
and to open to all sensations. Why would one do that?
So one way that my relationship to somatics has been deepened has been through a modality called somatic experiencing. It was started by a man named Peter Levine and has become a modality that many therapists and body workers have used to work with people and their relationships to their bodies and their integration of traumatic or overwhelming experiences. And something that was given to me in that training early on was this metaphor of life as a river. Classic. Life is a river. Something that we've heard, I think, before. But in this model, they offer that our nervous system, when it's regulated, is in this river of life flowing. And when we experience something that overwhelms the nervous system, then it can create an eddy. And so we can become kind of stuck in our experience outside the flow of life. And in that metaphor, I thought a lot about what the river of life is and what it means to be stuck in an eddy and what it means to get back in the river of life. In this metaphor, then they give the image that as we integrate the experiences that have been overwhelming and we come back into the river of life, then our banks widen. So there's more in the river of life. And I think initially I had a thought that the river of life, like coming back into the river of life, meant coming back into what is beautiful, what's pleasant, what's joyful, connected. And the more that I've sat with that and sat with other people in this modality, I realized that the river of life is really holding the fullness of life. That as we integrate experiences and widen our banks, integrate experiences that have overwhelmed us or have been traumatic and widen our banks, then that is finding the capacity within us to accept life, being open to senses, the full spectrum of what sensations I may experience, stretching my capacity to be with the fullness of life. In our last few minutes together, I was reminded of an exercise that was taught to me in a butoh class. And butoh is a contemporary Japanese dance form that was synthesized in post-World War II Japan. So it drew from different traditions, but it came together as people were really trying to reckon with what they had experienced during the war and the breadth of experience that they had during the war, and how all of that could live within their bodies. And so this dance form called butoh came together, and it can look many different ways. The performance of it can look different than what it feels like to be inside of the performance, and also the practice of it can be a different experience as well. One way that I've experienced the practice of butoh is through durational improvisations that invite participants to use the space of the improvisation as a metaphor for birth and death and for life. The first exercise that was taught to me within this form was an exercise where you spend a few moments opening your hand. So you'll clench your fist, and then I'll set a timer, and for 3 minutes, we're going to open our hand. And the aim is to open it fully during this time. And what was given to me with this practice is that during this exercise, you'll experience every sensation that there is to experience. I don't know if that will be the case for you or not, but it's something to play with, and it feels like a good way to pin our time. So you can clench your fists and maybe take a moment to just breathe with intention as you start the exercise. And just like we were with tracking sensations, the invitation is to just be present with your experience. So from where you are, you can acknowledge that you're beginning and start to open your hand. Okay, wherever you are, you can pause, acknowledge this as an ending, and can come back to the group. I want to just thank you for your attention and for playing along with me and being engaged and curious and sharing your experience. I hope that it was useful for you or interesting. If anyone has any reflections from this exercise or from our time together, any questions, feel free to share.
I work with my hands a lot, and I was just noticing how much emotion is tied up in the hands, the different stages of opening from a closed fist. There's so many associations. If you've worked with your hands for any period of time, there's associations with every position your hand might achieve. Some warm memories, some regrets, some, all kinds of things. So that was very interesting to see the detail of that. Mm. And how muscles were to some degree frozen or reticent is probably a better word, at certain stages of that opening.
It was safer to keep my hands closed than open, even though I really wanted to open my hands fully. I actually had anxiety about doing that, which does surprise me knowing myself, but it was interesting that a simple movement like just opening your hand could elicit that.
Yes, during the process, a word came to me, and it was the word healing. This can be very healing. I experienced it as healing. That's very simple, but very significant. And I want to open more to life and not be tied up and contracted because of past experiences and traumas. I want to be more open.
My hand opening brought up the image of a flower opening. And it kind of felt like this is what life is about. And these exercises just made me feel more in touch with the body. Like this is really life in the body.
Yeah, so unlike your opening remark that we might go through every emotion that there was, I didn't have any emotion. I was so there with every physical sensation. I mean, my attention was riveted on my hand. There was no stories, pictures, anything. It was only my hand existed in the world. So that was really fun. Thank you, Naomi.
That's a good point. I think I misspoke. Maybe they said emotion, but I think it was about the sensations of life, not the emotions. Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everyone's attention and willingness to play along and to share.